Democratic candidate for Texas Attorney General, Tony Box. Thank you so much and welcome to Eye on Politics.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. So why are you running for Texas Attorney General and what is the essence of your campaign?
So I'm running for Attorney General to help people. The Attorney General is the chief law enforcement officer in the state of Texas and should be laser focused on service. I am focused on service and have been my entire career. And I'll tell you a little bit about where that comes from. When I was 16 years old, I was shot while trying to help someone. And during that process of healing and recovering in the hospital, I decided that I would live a life of service. I promised God and others that I would live my life to serve others. And then since that time, I've done exactly that. I've served as an FBI agent, I've served in the Army a full career, I've served as a federal prosecutor, I have lived a life of service. And the essence of this campaign is communicating that to the citizens of Texas, to the voters, to the people who need service, and contrast that with Ken Paxton and others who seem to be serving themselves, serving their rich buddies, as well as serving political parties. I'm not that guy. I am here running to serve the people of Texas.
And what exactly does that mean? And how do you take your life experience, getting shot, which I can't even imagine, and how does that guide how you will serve as Attorney General and on crime as well?
Sure. So it is a difficult, getting shot was of course difficult, but what I've gotten out of that, I still carry that bullet with me to this day.
It's still in you?
It is still in me, in my liver. It is
Wow.
a permanent reminder, it is a North Star for me that I have to serve others and I have to be a beacon or a guiding light for others. And in a leadership position, running for the Attorney General, I looked at this race and I said, what is the highest and best use of my skills, my knowledge, skills, abilities, experiences as a federal prosecutor, someone who's locked up literally dozens of people, violent criminals as well as white-collar criminals. And Attorney General has a tremendous enforcement responsibility, and I'm ready to meet that responsibility. On day one, I will be ready to assume that job and carry it out with honor and integrity.
And why should Democratic primary voters vote for you over Senator Nathan Johnson and over former Galveston Mayor Joe Jaworski?
So first, as a primary, we're in a Democratic primary. Primaries are good. Competition is good. It sharpens all of us. Second of all, I'm not a professional politician. I have lived a life doing military and FBI and prosecutor, and those things distinguish me. When I talk to voters, they want someone who is not politics as usual, who is not seeking to advance themselves, who has not been in politics for a very long time and just doing politics for the politics' sake. They want someone who cares about the people, who's going to put themselves, who's going to put the people first. You know, I've laid it all on the line for this country and for others, and I'm willing to do it again for the people of Texas.
And what priorities do you have? What are your top priorities should you be elected?
Sure, there are many. But you know, one is, I just mentioned consumer protection. One thing that's going on currently is the federal government has largely retreated from enforcement. And so in that situation, the Attorney General should really step up his act. Instead, we have an Attorney General sitting on his hands. He has also retreated from enforcement. I have worked with DAs, I've worked with enforcement. I have personally, I'll tell you a quick story. So when I had a young family, we had a recommendation for furniture, and we went highly recommended by my colleagues. We put our money down on furniture, and the company shortly thereafter went out of business, took our deposit, and we didn't have a lot of money. You know who fought for us, who got our money back? The AG. The AG enforced that, every penny of that. And that's not taking place now. And so one of my priorities is enforcement. Consumer enforcement is really important. Everyone knows someone who's either been scammed or has been attempted to be scammed. And nothing is happening now. I talk to my former FBI buddies, my former prosecutor buddies, and they're just busy with other things, enforcement and typical matters that's coming from DC. But the Attorney General should be doing something about it. Second is I mentioned DAs. I want to increase our relationship with DAs. When I was a federal prosecutor, we worked with DAs all the time. I've spoken to DAs, and largely this Attorney General's office is absent. And the second thing is that the relationship is broken. I want to work really, really hard to repair that relationship. The Attorney General should be a leader in law enforcement. They should set up task forces and working relationships and encourage AGs to seek out help. And the third thing is I want to do a top to bottom review of everything that Ken Paxton has done. All of his lawsuits, all of his press release, all of his performative politics. We're going to look at what needs to stay, especially in terms of lawsuits, and what needs to be discarded. And I do anticipate that some of those will need to be discarded.
And what does that mean? So, in other words, just dropping some of the lawsuits that the current Attorney General Ken Paxton has filed, and do you have any in mind?
Yes, that's exactly what it means. To the extent that I believe that they are unjustified or unconstitutional or not in the best interest of the state, it does mean dropping them.
And do you have any specific cases in mind?
Yeah, well, one is the unconstitutional gerrymandering that just took place. That is very much at the top of my list. Another is Ken Paxton getting rid of almost single-handedly getting rid of the DREAM Act, which is something that was lauded nationwide, something that the legislators, the Republican as well as the Democratic legislators agreed upon, and Ken Paxton took it upon himself to see to it that people could not afford education anymore. Education is why I'm sitting here today, and so those are some of the things I have in mind.
And just on the redistricting battle,
Sure.
Which we're still waiting for the federal courts, as you and I are talking, we're still waiting for the federal courts to weigh in. So does that mean that you would no longer defend the state if this continues to come up? You would no longer defend the state, because that's what the Attorney General's office is doing, is defending the state from its current lawsuit.
Sure. So as part of my top to bottom review, this is at the very, very top. And there's a very strong possibility, I believe, that this is likely unconstitutional. I cannot say definitively. I have not reviewed the internal files. I do not, it's going to be part of that top to bottom review of everything. And there is a possibility that I would not defend it.
And how is it, because I think that's a key question, if you disagree with a state law and you as Attorney General are required to defend the state in a lawsuit, so how do you defend the state, and even if you disagree with the law?
So the dividing line is do you believe that this law is unconstitutional? And I'm not going to defend unconstitutional laws. And to the extent I've sworn an oath to the Constitution over and over again, started when I was 18 years old, and it continues to today. I'm not going to defend unconstitutional laws. And so that is, how you divide or determine whether you're going to defend or not defend a law.
And so what happens at that point that you make a decision like that, and what does the state do to defend itself? Does that mean your office has to go out and hire a private firm to defend the state, or is that up to the governor and the executive branch?
It is up to the governor, and oftentimes they do hire outside counsel. It's not unusual.
And that also raises a question that if you are to win, or any Democrat wins for that matter, but if you are to win and become the next Attorney General for the state of Texas, what kind of relationship would you have with the Republican leadership? Governor Abbott could very well be elected. He's certainly favored to win this race, Lieutenant Governor, et cetera.
I believe that I will have an excellent working relationship with them. I have worked with Democrats, Republicans. When I was in the FBI and as a federal prosecutor, no one knew what party anyone was. We didn't give a hoot. What we cared about was doing the job, and that's the way I will be in this job. I can work with Governor Abbott and the Lieutenant Governor and anyone else to advance the interests of Texas, and I think we will be able to work together.
And if you are to win, you will come in during President Trump's last 2 years of his term in office. Do you envision joining other Democratic states who file lawsuits against the Trump administration?
So I believe that there are many. So Ken Paxton has over 100 lawsuits. He filed over 100 lawsuits against President Biden and 0 against his current administration. And there are lawsuits that should have been filed. For example, taking billions of dollars out of Texas, the federal government, and choosing just not to defend that. And there are Democratic states, you just mentioned the Democratic lawsuits, where those lawsuits have been filed and those states have recovered those billions for their citizens. Instead, we're left here without that money, and much needed money, education, healthcare, and things of that nature. And so there is a very real possibility I would join lawsuits from others.
And what funding are you talking about? You're just talking about the general tax dollars that Texans send to Washington and comparing that to what the federal money that comes back to the state?
No, there are very specific examples, and yes, in general, but there are specific examples as well. So one is NIH funding, which was pulled. A tremendous amount of money was lost for the state of Texas. There are attorney generals who sued to restore the NIH funding, and what the court said is, yes, we will restore this money. Federal government, you must restore this money, but it only applies to those AGs who sue. Colorado is one of the ones, Massachusetts is another one, and they recovered. Ken Paxton did not sue, and he did not recover. It was simply a matter of joining that lawsuit, or if I were in that job, I would leave that lawsuit because it was unjustified to pull this money out of Texas and out of the states, and that's what the judge said.
Let's talk about border security,
Sure.
Certainly a big issue. The state has spent billions of dollars on this every biennium during their budgets. Where are you on that issue? Should the state continue spending billions of dollars to secure the border?
I'm a person who believes the border should be secured, yes. I believe money should be spent to keep us safe. Violent criminals coming across our borders is a non-starter, and we should spend what we need to spend to do that. Now, the broader issue about immigration in general, I believe immigration is good for this country, and that it is the lifeblood of this country. Most of us are immigrants, or many Americans are immigrants, and as long as you come the legal way, I'm supportive of that.
Let's talk about all these shootings that we've seen, deadly shootings. We saw the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We saw the assassination attempts on President Trump. We've seen the assassination of a Minnesota state lawmaker and her husband.
Yes,
we
right.
saw terrible, deadly shootings at churches, at schools. So how do you prevent that?
You prevent that through proper security. These schools need to be secured, and whether that means security guards or whether that means doors and physical security and cameras and things of that nature. And you need to mental health counseling. In many cases, like for example, some of the schools, they came from within or individuals they had heard about or been warned about. And so law enforcement needs to take those things seriously, and it should not, and mental health, problems are real. And so many of these shootings come as a result of that, and people need treatment, and when there's a warning that an individual has a gun and that they are unstable, then action should be taken.
Does the state of Texas do a good enough job of keeping guns out of the wrong people's hands?
So I think that the state of Texas does do a fairly good job. Texas has some of the most restrictive, permissive gun laws there is, and that is an asset for the state. And so Texas does an excellent job of allowing people to defend themselves. In terms of keeping them out of the wrong hands, we should continue to kind of carry on as we have been carrying on, as well as look for opportunities to get guns out of the hands of people who are mentally unstable.
And what about criminals?
Criminals as well, of course. Yes, I've locked up literally 100 people for violent crime and guns, and many of them were individuals who had a felony possession, and I stand by those prosecutions, those convictions. So yes, violent criminals, of course, should not have a gun.
And just to make sure that I heard you correctly, you support the state's current gun laws, or do you think that there should be more restrictions?
I support the state's current gun laws.
And what about adding restrictions to gun sales, background checks, red flag laws, et cetera?
So this is another area where we're going to take a look at as to what our position is going to be. But as we sit here today, I am not looking to add any additional restrictions.
And then my last question to you is, what was your thought about Governor Abbott deploying the Texas National Guard to Chicago?
It's abhorrent. I do not support that.
Why not?
I'm a soldier. Yeah, I spent 20 years as a soldier. No soldier wants to be deployed in that manner. Look, we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. We should never use our people, our military, against our own people. That is not the appropriate manner to use military. And so I'm not supportive of using the greatest fighting force in the world against Americans.
All right, Tony Box, Democratic candidate for Texas Attorney General. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me, Jack.
You bet.